Today I'm strolling around a co-working space in HSR Layout in Bengaluru. HSR Layout is close to the IT hub and electronic city. It is most people's introduction to the city if they have moved for a job. I'm at a startup mixer, which if I'm being honest, I've never been. The room is full of dudes and one girl besides me. I'm here to understand if people really do mix in these mixers. Yes, sure.
So I have a startup and I came to speak to other founders in similar spaces or in similar stages.
The event, is it also a networking thing for you?
Yeah.
Attending this event?
Mainly, pretty much networking.
And do you go to other events like this?
I do, yeah.
And has it ever, have you met people through them?
I've met people. Has it directly resulted in an outcome? Maybe very few times. I've had one instance where I met somebody who was a Shopify expert and she helped me fix some bugs in my store.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it's more, okay, you're building network in similar spaces.
Yeah.
There's no direct outcome. At least I haven't had many direct outcomes from a networking event. It's more indirect.
This is a young founder building a D2C apparel brand. Like how parents describe their baby's age in months, he describes his startup as 17 months old. It is in its crawling stage. He came all the way from the other side of the town just for this mixer in pouring rain on a Saturday night. I wanted to know what's in it for the people at this convention. What are their motivations? What do they hope to achieve by the end of it?
If you are building something, if you are good in something, it will help you to it can also get you a job as well.
This was a final year student at a premier engineering college in Bangalore. He was wearing a hoodie and Crocs and talking to people about job openings.
Because they're looking for a job, not for exactly an experience in a startup zone. So something like these meetups help us to kind of really, maybe not the perfect fit, but somebody who's really interested. So people would have made their time in the weekends to come down here and kind of, start meeting, meeting people. And we might somehow get, a couple of people who are right now working with me are right now, I got it from the similar places.
That was a founder from a tier 2 city who came to Bangalore just to attend this mixer. He wanted to find enterprising talent for his early stage startup, which I learned is his second attempt at entrepreneurship. As I'm walking around this room and talking with these guys, people are looking for jobs, jobs are looking for people, and some are planning the mixers they're attending next week. One peculiar thing I'm noticing though is that as soon as I stop recording, people share with me how many of these connections, air quotes, a word I was hearing a lot, didn't last longer than a week. How it always is a hit and a miss, and how difficult it is to build a genuine relationship no matter how hard you try. I get it though. I don't know much about networking, but I do know networking can feel forced, cringeworthy, or worse, futile. You shouldn't have to brave rains and bad roads to make an effort and have it be bad, I thought to myself. I am Aksha Chandrasekharan. This is The First 2 Years, a show where we ask and answer the toughest questions around work, especially in your early career. New episodes drop every Tuesday. Follow the podcast to get a notification when it does. On today's show, we discuss this messy, confusing thing called networking. We understand what professional networks can do to one's career, but we have very little success with building one. If you're starting out and are looking for less awkward and effective ways to do this thing, this episode is for you. After I came back from the mixer, I really went down a rabbit hole on Google looking up stuff and reading up about this. I came across a LinkedIn survey from 2022 which read that 85% of the jobs are obtained through networking. I mean, coming from LinkedIn, it kind of made sense because LinkedIn itself is built on the premise that building professional networks can make you more successful. Each one of us are on LinkedIn to expand our networks. And every day, so many LinkedIn messages are sent in pursuit of doing just that. Most of them, though, statistically speaking, go into a void and often don't get answered.
I'd just like to know what goes through a person's mind when they're seeing that sort of very networky text on LinkedIn or somewhere that, okay, there's these like fresh college graduate who's like, how do I get into the industry? And sometimes people make it very obvious that, okay, yeah, you're trying to be empathetic, you're trying to be, make a relationship, but in the back of your mind, you're still looking for something tangible over there. So I'd love to understand what goes through in the mind of the person who is being reached out to, and how they would be more receptive to be helpful.
That's Rohin Mukherjee. He's 23 years old and working at the CEO's office of Translumina Therapeutics. And he wanted to know what kind of requests get accepted and which ones get rejected. It was part of a bigger problem that he was describing to me, which is to understand what successful networking looks like. This was the question that sent me to the Startup Mixer. Since I can't get a peek into people's DMs, I wanted to see how this usually plays out in real life. I came back without much success though, so I called someone who I'd consider an expert.
It is through other people we understand the world. So it's very fundamental to animals and human beings.
Santosh Babu is a celebrity executive coach. His client roster involves India's top companies and he teaches at premier B schools in the country. He's someone who studied this subject extensively. He's also the founder and managing director of ODA, Organization Development Alternatives. I relate all of my questions and Rohin's to him. What does a good network look like? How do successful people build these networks? What makes someone say yes to your request to connect? And why do we care about all of this?
Einstein is a genius. And we thought the genius is in his brain. So his brain got stolen twice from the museum because people wanted to figure out where is his genius. But what they didn't know, all his theories came because of the discussion he had with the 4 of his friends. So the idea came from the network, not from his brain. There is a beautiful book called Einstein's Brain, Social Networks and Culture. So knowledge is embedded in the network. What kind of a network I need to be part of so those ideas, osmosis happen to me? That's what I would say. And it is a problem when we start looking at these relationships or network from a very practical and goal-oriented manner.
Okay.
Which
is exactly what I'm doing, no?
Yeah. Where a lot of people are asking, it's a very goal-oriented manner. I am here now. How do I build some 5 connections and get onto a job? That's a goal-oriented. So I teach something, I say, you build relationships when you don't need relationships. So that when you need, you have them.
So the way I'm thinking about building relationships and even based on what I observed at the Mixer, right, is that an aspiring founder is looking to speak to other founders. If you're a SaaS marketeer, then you want to connect with another SaaS marketeer. If you ask me the same thing, right, I'm more interested in talking to a journalist who covers careers in workplaces like me, rather than someone who's covering crime, right? Like, that's how I'm letting, to use your phrase, idea osmosis happen to me. Like, this is the most common approach that I've seen around me, and this is kind of the approach I have as well. Is this all right?
It's a very good question. But let's understand 3 kinds of networks we can form. One is called bonding connection, B-O-N-D, bond. These are the relationships that we have with people who are similar to us. A SaaS marketeer knows the other SaaS marketeer, then it is a bonding connection.
This is the strongest form of connection and most commonly observed, says Santosh. The good thing is that it's easy to relate to and easy to form strong ties with people from similar backgrounds. But the bad thing is there is no new information flow. It can soon turn into an echo chamber. The second type of bond is
Bridging connections. These are relationships with people who have nothing to do with your career. So the modern helmet that we designed is by looking at the skull of a woodpecker. So being a naturalist helped the helmet maker.
so true.
He
Yeah.
didn't get the information from the other helmet makers.
Bridging connections can open you up to a whole new world. It is people who can introduce novel ideas and challenge ways of thinking. It's hard to find and harder to keep, but it's worth it, says Santosh. The third type of connection is very, very interesting, and it's called linking connection.
Linking connections are connections that you have with the people in power and positions. Typically happens, right? In the village, there is a problem, and one villager will say, "Oh, I have a relative who knows the collector."
This made me go back and take a good hard look at my LinkedIn connections. Okay, so I have so many bonding connections, basically, like my other journalist friends, people who went to college with me, people in professions adjacent to journalism, right? Like PR, communications, Corpcom, and all of that also has to come in bonding connections. Yeah, bonding connections. Very, very few bridging connections, which is not good because then it means that I'm not getting any new ideas. But strangely, all my bridging connections are psychologists. Somehow I seem to be connecting only with psychologists. And a lot of linking connections because literally my job expects me to speak to CXOs and founders and subject matter experts. So that's just a function of the job. So the balance is not there. I have a lot of bonding, very little bridging, and a lot of linking connections. I mean, I can already see how there is an aspirational value attached to linking connections, right? Especially in the corporate world, because people want to be close to the corridors of power. It's almost like more linking connections mean more social influence. And if you're at a workplace, you try to be in the good books of people, like whoever is at the top of the food chain, right? So I think people who have a lot of bonding connections would want to make a lot of linking connections.
There could be a tendency for everybody to create linking connection.
Yeah.
If you do that in the corporate world,
Yeah.
you get killed by your peers.
Why?
Everybody will say, you know what? See, Akshaya only want to hang around with that senior people. She doesn't bother about us.
Sucking up to someone like that.
So your peer level, if you don't have bonding connection,
Yeah.
if you ever try to only build connection at your peer level and your bonding connections can sabotage you. So it's about having all three.
It's tempting to want to have more and more linking connections. But something Santosh said made me realize how that may not be such a great idea.
I may have a connection to the Chief Minister of Kerala. But is it reciprocal? I can go and he'll meet me, but he doesn't call me when he wants something.
Yeah.
Then reciprocity is low. Reciprocal connections are highly, highly stronger. So most of the time, bonding and peer level connections are more reciprocal in nature.
Basically, there are two metrics to test how strong your network is: how frequently you talk to them, and how much give and take that there is. Frequency and reciprocity, which is what completely flips this concept of networking on its head for me. When you think networking, you think about what you can get from the other person. But after talking to Santosh and learning about the different types of relationships, it seems to me like it's more about giving, volunteering to give first, and slowly building that reciprocity into the relationship so it doesn't become very one sided. It's almost making me think it's not just about who you know, it's almost like who knows you back as well, right?
My philosophy is you have to reciprocate, otherwise it's not long term. You can get mentors who you can keep deriving sort of guidance, advice on, but in order to be more tangible in terms of benefits, uh, it has to be both sides. You have to reciprocate on both sides, I think.
Samyak Daga is vice president of private equity firm Carlyle. He's an IIT and IM alumnus. His job requires him to professionally network day in and day out. It's a skill he had to learn on the job. Deal making in private equity is difficult to say the least. They generally rely on deal advisors to sift through a lot of information and give them some perspective. The right advice at the right time from the right advisor can make a huge difference.
Yeah, I think, look, every day my job is, to like I said, to derive some insights from somewhere, from someone. So, but I think it goes from as basic as saying, let's say, I have an advisor who has helped me in the past, is there for me personally, and of course the firm I represent. Get the job done, give us the right advice, and so on. But and therefore helps us a lot, right? But that can't be the single sort of of course there's a monetary compensation to his firm, but that's more business than network. I think personally, then my obligation, I've done that in the past, that I have, when their promotion was going on, I actually called the senior partner there and said that this guy has been very influential for me, and I would stand behind the decision that you make, whether to make him partner or not. So I think that's it goes from as basic as this to
That's not basic at all.
Yeah.
But did they
so I
ask
think
you
that's
for this recommendation?
no, they don't. No, they don't. That's the point. Because if they ask for it, then you anyways have to
Do it.
I think, yeah. But I think here it was more that I got to know that this guy was up for promotion, and therefore I made it a point to call.
Okay, but what were you like reciprocating, or was this like a
Yes.
beginning of? Okay, yeah. What happened before
No,
that?
it was reciprocating because the person and his team was influential for us, like I said, for getting a few things done, giving the right advice initially, right? So for the first couple of years, they were doing that only for, let's say, the business part of it, right?
Got
Which
it.
is the professional duty that you have, the professional obligation that you have. But apart from that, I think and that's when actually, when I made that call, that's when it cemented into a much deeper sort of a relationship, right?
Yeah.
So I can call that person, at any time, and I would know that this person will do the right thing for me, the right thing.
Yeah.
So I think that's where slightly, professional becomes a little personal, but
Yeah.
I think that's how the network gets deepened, I would think.
So far, what I've understood is what kind of relationships there are and how to keep that balance. These are the kind of bonds I want to make, and I know they are good for me. I need to think about giving first, but it can still be nerve wracking and awkward to do it, right? I still haven't gotten my original question that came from Rohin answered. Samyak gets asked everything from how do you prepare for IIT entrance examination to how to bag a job at a private equity firm post MBA. So I felt like he was the best person to answer this question. Somebody in their age group between the 18 to 25, they're probably constantly reaching out to, say, people like you or the people that I'm talking to day in and day out, okay? So they were like, do they know when they see a request that this person is clearly, they have something in mind and that's why they've reached out? Or, do they know like, oh, this person's just genuinely being curious? Like, basically they want to know what kind of request you say yes to and what kind of request you're like, yeah, I'm not responding to that, right? Like, so I think they want to get like a behind the scenes, like what goes into the mind of someone who's receiving the networking request versus someone attempting a networking this thing, right? Because a lot of them are doing that. I'm sure you're having a lot of people in my TA reaching out to people like you.
Yeah, no, I think a lot of the reach outs, as you would imagine, are actually for opportunities for a job or internship and things like that, which are quite tactical. So
Yeah.
I can just say, okay, there's no opportunity, there's an opening, or there's an opening, I'll connect you. So it's quite tactical and it's quite transactional, I would say, which is okay. I mean, they're clearly only seeking for opportunities, right? But that's not building a network. It's not building a network, So
it's more like, hi, Samyak, so I'm looking for a job, right? Kind regards, like it ends.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And I don't think that's the right. I mean, it is okay to do that, but if you have to go one step further, you have to say that, okay, I've seen that you did ABC. I have some point of view. I don't have a point of view. I really want to learn about what you do instead of just saying, okay, I want a job.
Yeah. Has anyone ever surprised you in this, in these kind of reach outs where you were like, hey, I'm very surprised that this person.
Yeah, actually, I think a couple of months back, or maybe it was 6 months back, there was someone who just just out of curiosity, I think they asked to me on LinkedIn that okay, I've done a bank deal, and all of these banks have housing finance subsidiaries. So what's really the need of a separate housing finance company like a PNB Housing Finance and so on? I mean, it's very domain specific, but it's just a interesting, curious question for someone to ask, which sort of intrigues me. So
did you respond?
So I think I finally did a call with them as well, and
Did it materialize into anything? Are you guys do you guys talk? No.
Yeah, I think we're contemplating of whether we should give an offer for a small role to that person, but it's a bit early stage. But I think but it did. I mean, I would say rather than just someone saying, okay, please, do you have an opportunity? I think that was a better way of someone reaching out, even if that person only wanted a job, right?
This episode was written and hosted by me, Akshay Chandrasekharan, with audio engineering by Rajiv CM. Thank you for tuning in. This is The First 2 Years. See you next time.